You've probably already seen all the headlines about Raleigh, North Carolina. Best place to live, fastest growing metro, top city for young professionals. But is living here really all it's cracked up to be? Look, I'm not gonna tell you those rankings are wrong. I moved here myself and I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. But I also think you deserve a real, honest look at both sides of the coin before you pack your bags. So today, I'm breaking down the real pros and the real cons of living in the Triangle. The good stuff, the not so great stuff, and everything in between so you can decide for yourself. But before we get into that, my name is Matt Martin, and not only am I a Raleigh-based realtor, but I'm also a transplant to the Triangle region, originally from LA and New York City. I've helped tons of clients just like you do exactly what we did back in 2021 and relocate to the Triangle region. So if you're looking to do the same, I'd love to help you too. Now, I want to be upfront about something. I love it here. So yes, I'm biased, but I'm also very honest with every single client I work with about what to expect when they move here because I want them to be happy once they arrive. So that's the spirit I'm bringing to this video. And with that, let's get into it. And we're gonna start with one of my personal favorite parts of living in Raleigh, and that's the outdoors. The Triangle is genuinely one of the greenest, most nature-connected metro areas I've ever lived in, and it's something everyone comments on the first time they visit. The city of Raleigh alone has over 100 miles of greenway trails, and there's plans to expand that network to over 250 miles in the coming years. You've got Falls Lake, Jordan Lake, Umstead State Park, all within about 20 to 30 minutes of downtown Raleigh. And the thing that really blew me away when we moved here is how seamlessly nature integrates with daily life. You can literally be in the middle of the city and feel like you're in the middle of the woods. But it's not just what's immediately around us that makes living here so special, it's also the access we have to the beaches and the mountains. Everyone you meet here will say the same thing. We're just 2 hours from the beach and 3 hours from the mountains. And that's pretty accurate. Wrightsville Beach and Surf City are about 2 hours east on I-40, but the Outer Banks are further out, about 4 hours away. And then the mountains of Boone are just under 3 hours away, but Asheville will take you closer to 4 to get to. So on any given weekend, you've got mountains, beaches, lakes, and trails all within a reasonable drive, which is pretty hard to beat. Now, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention the other side of all that lush greenery, and that's pollen, specifically pine pollen. Every spring, usually late March through mid-April, the Triangle gets absolutely blanketed in a thick yellow cloud of pine pollen. And I am not being dramatic. Your car, your deck, your porch, your windshield, everything turns yellow. It's genuinely one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, especially coming from California. So if you have severe pine tree allergies, you're gonna wanna seriously research this before you commit to moving here. And then there's the critters. Yes, we have snakes, and while most of them are harmless, you do need to watch out for the copperheads. And the mosquitoes, we jokingly call them our state bird come summertime. They come with the humidity and the greenery, and they're just part of the deal. All right. So let's shake off the pollen and talk about what really gets a lot of people to move here, and that's the weather. Specifically the fact that we actually get 4 real seasons here. And not in an extreme, I have to dig my car out of 3 feet of snow kind of way, but in a genuinely enjoyable, you get the best of everything kind of way. Summers are warm, and yes, we'll get to that, but spring and fall here are absolutely stunning. Fall foliage, cool crisp air, sweater weather. Spring brings blooming dogwoods, magnolias, hydrangeas, and my favorite, the crepe myrtles, everywhere you look. And winter, while real, is mild enough that you're still getting outside most of the time, which is exactly what makes all that trail access so usable year round. That said, the 4 seasons thing isn't all postcard perfect. There are a couple of weather realities you need to know about going in. First, the summers are hot and humid. Average highs in July sit right around 90 degrees, And it's not a dry heat like you'd get in Arizona. It's sticky, humid heat that hits you the moment you walk outside. Coming from Southern California, this was definitely the biggest weather adjustment for me, but if you're coming from somewhere like Texas or Florida, you'll probably laugh at our summer. But you will be air conditioning dependent from about July through September, and that's just the reality. Number 2, we get some wild storms, y'all. Again, probably nothing you've never seen before if you're coming from Texas or Kansas, but I wasn't used to thunderstorms that shake the entire house or trees coming down across the region. And then number 3, the last con is really a silly one, but when it does snow or ice here, the city essentially shuts down. Raleigh averages about 5 inches of snow per year, so the infrastructure and the drivers, which we'll talk about later, simply aren't up for it. Schools close, roads close, and people panic at the mere mention of flurries. So if you're coming from the Midwest or the Northeast, this will definitely make you laugh at first, but then it'll frustrate you when your kid has had their 4th snow day of the year after half an inch of accumulation. All right, enough about the weather. Let's talk about one of my favorite things, and that's the food scene. And I'll be honest, this was one of the things that most surprised me when we moved here. Maybe I was naive, but if you're anything like me, you might be expecting the South to be a whole lot of barbecue and deep fried dishes. And while those definitely exist, our variety and caliber of food here is top notch. You've got creative restaurants like Brodetto, which does a Croatian Italian concept that I definitely wouldn't have expected to find here. There's Aja, which is a Mediterranean spot with super creative and interesting dishes. Malapata has fantastic Mexican dishes. Sap has incredible Laotian Vietnamese cuisine, and the list goes on and on. You can find my whole list right here, but honestly, I need to update that video because so many new restaurants have opened since I made it. The flip side of a booming food scene is that the prices at the hottest spots have started to really creep up pretty significantly. We're not talking Manhattan prices yet, but some of the trendier restaurants in Raleigh and Durham are now charging what you'd pay in a major coastal city. We went to a great steakhouse the other night and everything was impeccable, don't get me wrong, but the final bill was about $150 a person, which is not something you saw in Raleigh a few years ago. And getting a reservation at the most popular places can sometimes be a challenge. Some of the hottest spots in town book out a week or so in advance, and walk-ins are increasingly rare. For a city that not too long ago was a place where you could just show up and get a great table anywhere on a Friday night, it's a real change. And look, it's a good problem to have. It means the food scene is thriving, but it's worth knowing before you assume every dining experience here is as easy and affordable as it used to be. And that brings me to the bigger picture, growth and development. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's kind of that intangible that will either make you love or loathe a place. And the triangle is not just growing, it really is transforming. And I personally love being a part of that change and watching it all unfold. There's cranes everywhere, new neighborhoods, new restaurants, new mixed-use developments. Downtown Raleigh, downtown Durham, downtown areas of Apex, Holly Springs, and Cary are all undergoing serious investment and revitalization. And then the airport is a perfect example. RDU has completely transformed in just the 5 years that we've lived here, and it now has 75 domestic nonstop routes and 14 international nonstop destinations as of mid-2026, which is double the number of international routes it had just 4 years ago in 2022. That means more direct flights to more places, which makes the triangle feel less isolated and a lot more connected to the rest of the world. And all that new development brings real energy here and a sense that you're part of something that's building, that the city you're investing in both financially and emotionally is actually going somewhere. And that feeling is hard to quantify, but it's very real when you live it. And if you want to see all the exciting projects coming to the region, you can check out my video right here. Now, all that growth does come with some very real downsides, and I want to be honest about them. Traffic has gotten noticeably worse. More people means more cars, and while I give major props to the city and the state for their road work, rush hour has become a real thing here. No, it's still nothing like LA or New York, but it's a real change from what this region was 5 or 10 years ago. There's also constant construction, roads being widened, new subdivisions going up, old buildings coming down. So if you're someone who values a quiet, stable, already established neighborhood feel, the pace of change here might feel relentless. And then probably the most frustrating thing, we still don't have a light rail. For a region that has been growing this fast for this long, the lack of meaningful public transportation infrastructure, other than the buses, is a genuine gap. There have been plans for a light rail connecting Raleigh, RTP, and Durham for decades now, but it keeps getting delayed or defunded, and most people have resigned themselves to it never happening. But with about 80 people moving to the Triangle region every single day, it would be a game changer, so this is a hard one to put a positive spin on. But here's the thing about those 80 people moving here every day. They've actually shaped the Triangle's culture in a way that I didn't expect going in. Kind of like the food comment I made earlier. When I moved here from New York, I honestly braced myself for a more insular, homogenous southern city. And what I found instead was something a lot more interesting. Almost nobody is originally from Raleigh. People have come here from all over the country and the world because of our universities, the Research Triangle Park, and the overall quality of life. So when you move here, you don't feel like an outsider trying to break into a tight-knit local community. You feel like you've joined a city of people who are all still kind of figuring it out together. New neighbors introduce themselves, people at coffee shops ask where you moved from. There's a real openness here that I think stems from the fact that almost everyone came from somewhere else. I think that's really special, and it makes it a lot easier to build a community and feel at home quickly when you relocate here. Now, there is one place where all those people coming from everywhere with their different habits and backgrounds does not work in your favor, and that's on the road. The drivers here are not great. I say this as someone who learned to drive in LA and spent years navigating New York traffic, so I have a pretty high tolerance for bad driving. The problem stems from exactly what makes the community interesting. Everyone brought their own driving culture with them. So the person who learned to drive in Boston, the person from rural Georgia, or the person who grew up here when it was still a small town, they're all on the Beltline together at 5 p.m. And the infrastructure, which was designed for a much smaller city, hasn't really caught up. So it's not just one regional driving style you're adapting to. People don't use their turn signals at all. Some will slam on their brakes to let you merge, while others would sooner drive you off the road than let you in. You will get stuck behind someone going 45 on the highway, but one thing you won't experience: horn honking. And for someone who lived in New York City with real horn PTSD, that's honestly the biggest win of them all. So there you have it, the real pros and real cons of living in the Triangle. The outdoors with the pollen, the 4 seasons with the weather surprises, a food scene that's punching well above its weight with the reservation headaches that come with it, the exciting growth and the traffic that comes with it, and a community that's a lot more open and diverse than you might expect, but with the bad drivers. The fact that I genuinely struggled to make the cons list as long as the pros list should tell you something though. This is a really good place to live, but it's not perfect, and you deserve to know both sides before you commit. So if you're seriously considering a move to the Triangle and want to talk through any of this, what neighborhoods make the most sense for your lifestyle, what the real home buying process looks like right now, or just whether this region is the right fit for you, I would love to help. You can reach me by phone, email, or text, and you can find all my contact information in the link below, or by scanning this QR code right here with your phone. And if you liked this video, I've got a whole catalog of others all about moving to, living in, and buying real estate in the Triangle region of North Carolina. Here's another one I think you'll want to watch, so give it a click to keep on watching.